Okay, thank you guys for joining me once again on Trauma Talk. Okay, imagine this, you guys. What if someday people look back and said America itself carried the trauma of a nation? Yes, not just the trauma of individuals, okay, but a collective wound born out of violence, division, and silence. Yes, that possibility keeps me up at night, you guys, because the truth is how we handle debate and protest today will determine whether we heal as a nation or fracture beyond repair. Yes. Okay. All right. That's what we're going to talk about today on Trauma Talk. Okay. This is what we need to get into today. Okay. First of all, you guys, our founding fathers never intended for freedom to be expressed through violence. No, they believed in passionate debate. Yes, fiery words, sharp disagreements, bold protests, but they also drew a line. Okay? They had to have boundaries. Once violence takes over, it ceases to be freedom and becomes absolute destruction. Nonviolent debates and nonviolent protests aren't just ideas, they are safeguards, you guys. They are how we protect the soul of a country from developing into its own deep, unhealed trauma. Yes. Okay? We don't want to see the direction this is going, okay? The direction is really bad, okay? As a trauma coach and a therapist, I see the pattern, you guys. Violence creates wounds that ripple across the generations. Yes, this is rippling across our generation with Charlie Kirk. If a person doesn't heal their trauma, they pass it down. The same is true for nations. When debate turns violent, when protests become chaos, the trauma doesn't just disappear. It becomes embedded into the story of a people, into the story of that nation. And once a nation begins carrying that kind of collective trauma, it becomes harder and harder to preserve safety, security, unity, hope, and peace in that nation. Yes, it becomes harder. Okay, those things go out the door. Yes. So now let's talk about what we're going to say here on Trauma Talks today. Okay, this show is not about politics. Okay, we typically do not dive into those topics. That's not who we are, what we're here for. But as Americans, we cannot ignore this. Okay, standing up for nonviolent debate and nonviolent protest is not about party lines. It's about protecting the survival of the country that we love so much, no matter the past sins of that nation. Okay, we are still responsible for its future. Okay, all right, and that means we have to defend the rights. Okay, we have to defend the rights to speak, the right to stand, the right to dissent without violence. Yes, that's the key word here, without violence, because without those protections, freedom itself is at risk. Okay, freedom itself is at risk here. Okay, so let's get into this a little bit further. Okay, into some healing techniques to start the process of healing, get you back on track here. So how do we start healing both individually and collectively? One simple yet powerful practice is what I call the grounded breath of compassion. It goes like this, you guys. Okay, place your hand, okay, gently over your heart, okay, and take a slow, deep breath in through your nose for a count of 4. Imagining yourself breathing in peace. Hold that breath for a moment, letting your nervous system settle. Yes. Okay. Then exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 6. Imagining you're releasing fear, anger, hatred, chaos, all of it. As you breathe, the trauma of it all of it. As you breathe, silently say to yourself, I am here. I am safe and I choose peace. Okay? That's the grounding exercise. If this practice this repeatedly, okay, daily, okay, because it calms your body and it rewires your brain to choose connection over conflict and peace over violence. Yes, that's what this exercise does. Okay, so let's get into the neuroscience behind it. Okay, when you breathe in this intentional way that I just showed you, you're actually regulating your vagus nerve, the main highway of the parasympathetic nervous system. That sends a signal to your brain that says, I am safe. It quiets the amygdala, the fear center of the brain, and it allows the prefrontal cortex, the executive brain, okay, to come back online. Yes, okay. That's the part of the brain responsible for empathy, problem solving, and moral reasoning. Yes, we need that moral reasoning. In other words, it shifts you out of survival mode and into connection mode, which is where you need to be when you're debating. You need to be connecting, okay? And when individuals begin living from that place, debating from that place, protesting from that place, a nation begins to heal too. Yes, and that's what we need to do. We need to heal. And okay, let's get into the role of faith and self-empathy in this. And here's where faith, it all comes in here, okay? So faith reminds us we are not alone in this journey, okay? That's what you need to remember, okay, as you take in this journey of healing. You're not alone. Our Creator gave us the gift of breath, not just to survive, but to connect to Him, to ourselves, and to each other. And when you add self-empathy to this practice, speaking to yourself with a compassionate tone, compassion, you so often withhold from yourself, you begin to untangle the lies that trauma tells you. Okay, that spell becomes broken, and that unsafety feeling, that unworthiness feeling, that unloved feeling, self-empathy says, I see you, I hear you, and you matter. And that is exactly the posture our nation needs. Okay, to feel heard and seen. Citizens who are able to be seen and heard and valued, okay, then cease to tear each other apart, okay? If they begin to see each other and hear each other, okay? So let's get into this conviction. So let's be clear. If you want to secure this nation's future, first of all, we have to insist on laws and culture that protect nonviolent voices. It's not just about politics, you guys. It's about preventing America from carrying the trauma of violence in its DNA. You hear me? Violence in its DNA. That's a big deal, you guys. It's about making sure that generations from now on, people don't look back and say, we could have saved our nation from that trauma, but we didn't. We have the chance right now to keep America safe, secure, and whole, okay? All right? Let's not miss it. Let's not miss that, okay? So thank you guys for joining me on Trauma Talks, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.